everybody, welcome to Bastecamp here at Big Grill 2022. How is everybody doing? Give me a cheer. Amazing. I'm glad you're all having a great time. Right now, I know some of you have been waiting for this demo. I know I've been looking forward to it all festival. Someone who is a household name to all of us, someone we watched on our TVs growing up. Ray Mears is joining us to do a Going Wild demonstration. Ray Mears is someone who has spent his life and his career honing his bushcraft skills and is an expert on bushcraft and wilderness, and which he calls wilderness bushcraft. So he is going to give us a demo now on here. There will be times for questions. We'll go around with a microphone, so just put your hand up if you have any questions at all. But please give a very loud Irish welcome to Ray Mears. Thank you.
That's
so
lovely.
much.
It's lovely. It's nice to be here, and
We're delighted to have you here.
I have very fond memories of Ireland. It's a great place. It's really nice to be here. So we're gonna cook a salmon. That's the plan.
That's it.
There we go. I hope you'll be able to see what's going on, and
We have camera overhead on the fire, so the guys will be able to watch it on the screen here. And yeah, as I said, if anyone has any questions, pop your hands up and we can get them up.
very, very good. Well, this method of cooking a salmon is from the Pacific coast of North America. It's employed by native communities up and down the coast there, where they have huge runs of salmon. In fact, they had so many salmon that during the winter they hardly had to gather food. They would have a culture where they could be indoors having ceremonies because they had so much food.
Yeah.
And depending on the trees, there are various different ways of arranging the salmon for cooking in this way. But I've adapted the method for the type of materials that we have.
Okay.
I've already prepared some, but one of the secrets to this is to use willow. Willow grows really readily, so it's always available to us. And you need a sapling like this, and we take the bark off of the sapling because we're going to use the bark for one of the jobs. And the way to get the bark off is to peel it back like this, and then you can strip it down, and it comes off in one go like that. A bit there. Ideally, you want a bit of willow without too many side branches, but we pinched this from the river just over there a few minutes ago.
I see a lot of willow growing on the canals here in Dublin, actually.
Yeah, it's a very prolific plant, and this we can use as cordage to help us. And I've got one here I've split already to save some time. We split the willow, and the salmon's going to be put in here and then cooked over the fire. We've also taken some bits of willow and carved them into splints like that. But the secret to this method is to remove all the bones. We've got this lovely salmon. Isn't that incredible?
Beautiful.
Beautiful fish. The people in the north, when they go out to catch the salmon, the tradition is to catch the first few, and then they say a prayer to the salmon. But basically the prayer is a contract. And what they're saying is, we promise not to take too many of you in the hope that you will always come back and nourish us and feed us. There's a huge spiritual connection between the people and the food that they eat. And I think that's something we can all learn from. I think, we are, everything that we eat lived or lives. So we are in some way related to it. And what we need to do is to get rid of all the bones. I'm sure the youngsters don't like bones in their food. And I'll take you through this process. Mm-hmm. I like to stay very clean when I'm doing these jobs. The first thing, I'm going to take this fin here out. And the fin has a bone that protrudes forwards there. I can then hold this like a toggle so that it's safe, and then saw around. And all the bits that I take off will go into this pot. And what we would do is normally we'd make a soup from all of those pieces. So a salmon of this size can actually feed 20 people. Nothing wasted. And you can do this for grayling, trout, and Arctic char. Any of those fish you can butcher in this way. We have a fin here, and to get rid of that I need to slice up either side of it, pinch it, and just tear it out. Now the dorsal fin, and the way to remove it is to saw around beneath it. And there's a little one here, we'll do the same. And there's no hurry in these jobs.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that in our sort of world, people very often boast how quickly they can do things. But if you watch an Indian woman cutting up an animal, it's not about speed, it's about how well she does it.
Because she has
respect.
Yeah.
And they never leave the bones on the ground.
Yeah.
I always remember coming to a winter camp in a different part of Canada with an old woman who rode side saddle on a snowmobile in a skirt and tights for 6 hours, 40 below. And she got off, and then she looked at the ground at the camp, and younger Indians had been there, and they'd left bones on the ground. And that shouldn't be. Really, really serious.
Wow.
Here I cut down to the spine, but not through it.
Okay.
Turn it over, turn the knife the other way up, and push through just behind the gills and that fin. Turn it around, and do the same on this side here, like so. Now, it'll be difficult to see what goes on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take my thumb and find the ribs, and start to ease the ribs out of the flesh, working my way along. This is a very, very good salmon.
Yeah. How can you tell just from
the firmness of the flesh? This is a really good salmon.
Amazing.
Lovely.
We do love salmon in this country, but
it's not a wild salmon.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a shortage these days of wild
Yeah.
salmon. It's something that we should pay more regard to.
You have to have a special license to fish wild salmon in Ireland
And you
now.
see the bones are coming out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I can see you're running it right the way down to the
So I'm
bottom.
running my thumb along like this.
Can
my
everybody
fingers.
see that on the screen? Yeah, amazing.
So you can see. And now there are some other ribs here that go upwards, and we do a similar thing. Just ease the flesh off of the bones and leave it on the skin.
I can see why you wanted to make sure your hands are clean.
Yeah, hands clean, but the fish is going to be cooked very hot, so
Yeah.
it'll be, of course, clean. Native cooking is very simple, very straightforward. The ingredients are cooked fresh and they're cooked very hot, and so it's usually a very hygienic way to cook.
Yeah.
And so I'm gradually easing out all of these bones. I like at this point to just cut a little bit further up.
So it's the other reason.
So I've done one side now.
I was going to say the other reason you can take your time is if you are out in the wilderness doing this, you presumably have, you're not in a rush. You can take your time
Yeah.
and just do it
But
properly.
it is very, very important. They believe that if you're disrespectful, the animal won't allow you to catch it in the future. So one year I was in Canada and guiding a trip to look at grizzly bears.
Yeah.
We're on a yacht, and we came across a fleet of Shimshan people fishing for salmon. And the salmon that was running, you have to catch with a net. We didn't have a net. So we went over to one of the boats and said, can we buy a salmon from you? And it was a classic family. It was a grandfather and grandson fishing together.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely thing to see. And they said, yeah. And there was quite a current running, so we had to circle around to talk to each other. And then they put a huge salmon, like 3 times the size of this,
Wow.
on a boat hook and handed it across to us. And I said, how much do you want for it? He said, no, you bring me good luck. So they believed that because they'd been able to gift us a salmon, the salmon would respect that gift.
And give them.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
It's a different way of thinking.
Yeah, it is.
And
yeah.
it's a much more gentle way of thinking. And I think we forget these things,
Yeah.
We want everything instantly, don't we? And
It's kind of that give kindness to the earth and it'll give back to you.
exactly.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
Precisely that.
Yeah.
And I think these were beliefs that we had once too.
Yeah, definitely.
So just work my way along. Very, very nice fish. One of the things about working in this way, when you butcher any animal and you do it regularly, you get to understand what's good and what isn't.
Yeah.
And
also you were saying you can tell that it's not wild as well.
yeah, I can see that straight off.
Yeah.
And now that I have the secondary ribs here that are going up. Well,
you can see the bone is fully exposed now.
You can see that. I don't know
Yeah.
whether you can see. And I want these ribs to just ease them out.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
quite different to the way a chef would butcher a salmon, which is everything cut cleanly with a sharp knife.
Yeah.
This is a different way. This is my preferred way.
Yeah. You're kind of connecting with your food as well as you're doing it. Aren't
Feeling it, yeah. And there we go. Right, now we get to the point where we can start to pinch the spine and just run your fingers up and down the spine, pinching it. And as you do, it starts to emerge from the flesh.
you can see, yeah. You can just feel it starting to give.
It's not as fancy as MasterChef, is it? But wait till you see the
primal.
result.
It's more primal.
So now we can sever the skin at this end.
So the funny thing is that all of our families back through, I don't know how many generations, would have had these skills.
I think this would have
Years
been very
ago.
common around the world, this method.
Yeah.
And there are all the bones.
Look at that.
So,
Amazing.
I've left a little bit of flesh on because we need it for our soup. And then this is treated with great respect and popped away, ready for use. And at that point, I'm going to get rid of some of the gore from my fingers.
The very young helper coming up there.
And I don't know whether you can see that with your camera, but anyway, there's the steak. So I'm now going to close it up. And I'm going to make 3 cuts on this side. One here. Salmon skin's quite tough. And it was tanned, you know, and used to make clothing and gloves and bags and all sorts of things in the past.
And so you're just making 3 incisions on.
Yep.
Did you go right through to the other side, or you're going to do the?
It's gone just through the skin on this side at the moment.
Okay.
And now I've got these sticks I've prepared earlier. And I'll put these through like so. Okay. Now I'm going to turn it over
Yeah.
so that I can see where to make the cuts on the other
exactly,
side.
As a guide.
This lines up now. I can see exactly where to make the cuts on this side. One there, one here, and one here.
So then that's where the flesh side is out.
There we go. Okay?
Yeah.
So you see what we're getting. Yeah. Looks good, doesn't it?
Presumably, bigger salmon, you would use more sticks?
Bigger sticks.
Yeah, bigger
Not
sticks.
necessarily more sticks, just bigger sticks.
Okay.
And when the native people in the Pacific Coast have a festival, they may have 50 fish like this cooking at once.
Wow.
It's really something to see.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So the split stick goes straight up the middle, like this. And now we're going to bind that shut. You can give me a bit of that paper. That would be good. Cool. It's a great thing about a campfire. You can't do this in a kitchen. Let's get rid of our waste.
Yeah.
Now we've got willow bark that I peeled off earlier. You don't need to keep it wet. We've only done that because of the weather's so hot and waiting around to do the demo. So Because it's a big salmon, I'm going to wrap this end of the stick first for support. And of course, all these materials that we're cooking with will simply go back to nature when we're finished.
Yeah.
The one thing I cannot stand in terms of outdoor cooking is the use of aluminium foil. It's not necessary, and it doesn't rot away. It just breaks into small pieces and is there forever.
Yeah.
Much better to use natural materials wherever we can, leaves, and things of this nature. So you can help me out here by just holding that. Let's get that nicely lined up. Holding that shut for me there. That's good.
You know, when some people barbecue at home and they use wooden skewers, they would soak them in water first. Do you ever have to do that when you're in?
We're using green wood, so
Okay.
it's already moist.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. And you can do this at home, of course, even if you don't have a barbecue. You could just make a small pit in the lawn and put some charcoal in, and away you go.
Yeah.
And I often cook for guests like this. It's lovely. And so hopefully there are some fly fishermen in the audience who will be looking at this thinking,
Hands up, any fishermen?
any fly
Anyone
fishermen?
who likes to fish?
There we go.
We'll definitely have a... Andy, you definitely.
And I'm going to reinforce that one because that one's the one that gets hot. So it's a good idea to put another one on top. And this one will guarantee that the bottom one doesn't burn. It doesn't normally burn, but when you've got such a lovely fish, you don't want to take any risks with it. A wonderful material. You can make really strong ropes
Yeah, I can see
out
that.
of willow bark. It would have been a very important resource for our ancestors. And this time of year now, for our hunter-gatherer ancestors, was a really important season. Because at this time of year, the fibers in the countryside are at their longest and strongest. And you have to envisage communities now preparing baskets to store the harvest of the autumn. And of course, if it was a hot year like this, it would be a real problem.
Yeah.
And that's that done.
Amazing.
There we go.
Fantastic.
That's, normally we'd have a campfire, and this goes into the ground over the campfire like this. Maybe I'll provide a bit of extra support there, and there like that. Just move that across, that's good. And now it's just a matter of waiting for it to cook.
Do you want to put it, does it matter what kind of fire you put it over? Do you want it really hot or?
It doesn't matter, you use whatever fire you have.
Yeah.
And one of the secrets when you cook over a fire, whenever you're baking or roasting over a fire, you want the heat where you can hold your hand for the count of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go to 6.
Yeah.
And that gives you the perfect temperature for this sort of cooking. You cook the flesh side first.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the meat can fall off of the skin.
Okay.
So you cook the flesh side first. And once it starts to appear through this hole showing cooked, you briefly cook it on the skin side.
Yeah.
And that's it done.
Just to get that crispy. Okay, amazing. And how long does it normally take? Like
45 minutes, an hour, I think, for a fish of this size.
Yeah.
So sadly, you're not going to get to taste this one right now.
Maybe later. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, we think we have over here, Al. We have a gentleman.
Just Just wonder if the reason why it's willow, if it's just because it doesn't impart any flavour, or whether it's because it's more flexible to use, or what.
It's a very simple way to cook the fish. And I'm a real believer in simple. I love cooking and I love ingredients and chefy stuff. But I think the joy of cooking directly over a fire in this way is you really come to know the ingredients, the flavor of them. You understand them. Same is true of meat as well as fish. It's very simple. It's direct. It's easy to do. It's the most natural thing in the world.
Amazing.
I mean, it's also nice to fry a trout, in some butter and some whiskey.
I'm just wondering if there's a reason it's actually willow that you're using as opposed to another type of wood.
You could use any wood that would enable you to do that. But the advantage of using willow is, one, it's easy split, easy to find the right size. It grows back readily, so we're not cutting something that's slow. In fact, if you cut the top off and push it in the ground, it'll likely grow again. But also, it gives us the bark that we need to bind it up. So it's almost like nature intended it for that job.
Yeah. That's a great question. We have another one just behind there, Al, in the back. White t-shirt.
What wood would the natives have used? And do you think ash would work as well here? Do you think ash would work as well here?
Okay. I wouldn't use ash. It's not quite as reliable to split when it's that diameter. It'll tend to snap. And the native people in Canada and Oregon use a whole range of different woods. The most commonly used is cedar. And cedar can be split into long, thin splints. And rather than cooking like this, they'll put two long splints on either side of the fish and then short cross pieces. It actually holds it better. But we don't have cedar, so hence this way. In Oregon, they use a wood called ironwood, and they make long sticks that they can push up through the flesh. They leave the tail on so that the stick doesn't go through the end. It holds at the top, and they'll reuse those sticks because they are very inflammable. But again, we don't have that wood. Good question.
Yeah, using what's local to you. Anyone else have any questions? Over here at the front. Thanks, Al. Keep your hand up there so she can see. Yeah.
How you doing? As the fish cooks, the fire is going to get cold. So when it comes to kind of keeping the fire at the same temperature, you put more wood on, it's going to get very smoky. Is that going to affect it, or no? So
this fish is a little bit angled too much. It should be really a little bit more vertical. So you're cooking in the heat here. You add more fire where the smoke goes up. Depending on what wood you use, you can impart some flavor to the fish. So if you were to use dry willow, you give a real sweetness to the fish. And the same with alder. So if you use willow or alder, but normally we don't worry. Just keep the fire going and the embers to this side. Straightforward.
Amazing. Any
Good
other
question.
questions? Oh yeah, thank you.
So you said earlier that was clearly farmed salmon. How would you tell the difference between farmed and wild?
Well, there are a variety of ways. The first thing is when you look at the fish, the signs of how it's lived are in the fins and what's gone on. Farmed salmon today are a far cry of 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they were a disgrace. Now they're much better than they were. But with experience, you can just look and see the difference. The wild salmon is an athlete that the farm salmon isn't. I don't know whether you've ever seen a freshly caught mackerel. But a freshly caught mackerel, it's a real athletic fish. You can feel it in the tone in the muscle. It's had to fight and struggle its whole life, whereas this hasn't. This is the council estate fish.
Great question, though. Anyone else? Oh, yeah, sorry. One here at the front.
So, obviously, this type of cooking connects us with our history pretty well. So, it's very difficult nowadays for people to find that link to that history. What do you think that we can do more in general in restaurants as people to be able to find that connection to the past?
I think the connection to our food is just taking a moment to consider the ingredients. Even if you're in a restaurant, good restaurants, really top chefs, are very good at presenting food with respect. I think we must be respectful, whether it's a vegetable, whether it's fish, whether it's meat. To me, they all lived, and that unites us. They're our brothers and sisters. We survive by consuming other living things. Well, we need to do so with respect and with care, and to show dignity to the things we've cooked. Even the way we handle the bits that we take off, I think, is important. It feels right. And the fact, I mean, today obviously we won't, but normally we'd make a soup from this. So we would simmer those trimmings for half an hour, then add some stock to that and some ingredients, and mix that with a roux and make a beautiful soup. We can take bits of the flesh and add that into each of the bowls of soup and easily cook for 20 people off of one salmon. So it's amazing how far this food can reach. Yeah.
Great question. Anyone else? Yeah.
Will you be bringing out another one of your brilliant series soon, or?
Yeah, well, at the moment I'm doing some stuff for the internet, actually. The commissioning in television has gone towards sort of Love Island and things like that. And
Not auditioning for
it's
Love
really
Island.
interesting question. The grown-up television is now being made off of mainstream. It's a cycle that things go through. So I've been doing some stuff for history here, which I've really enjoyed doing. Some pretty stunning stuff we've done, actually. But yeah, there are lots of other irons in the fire for grown-up TV too. But it's up to you to tell the commissioners what you want to see. Because, you know, the stuff they're commissioning, those of us who've been in telly for a long while are in dismay.
Surely at the moment there is, like, even, you know, there's an interest more in cooking over fire, like festivals like this are growing. People have an interest in where their food comes from, where it's sourced, all that sort of stuff. And we're being told that message as well, like, because for lots of different reasons. So now more than ever, like, going back to those skills that are forgotten, like cooking over fire, bushcraft. I mean, I would see that there's probably more of a demand for your skills than ever to kind of pass it on, to educate.
Busy teaching, and it's great fun.
Yeah.
I think the joy of this sort of thing as well is that cooking is a real celebration, a family celebration.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've seen time and again with hunter-gatherers is when they go to collect food, it's a family outing. It's like a festival.
Yeah.
So I remember going to out with some Indians in the Amazon, and they were going to poison a river, which is one of their ways they fish. That sounds terrible. It's only a temporary damage to the river.
Okay.
But the whole village goes, including the pets.
Okay.
They canoe upriver. One of the kittens fell out of a canoe, and there was commotion as they had to back up and pick up their loving pet, and they had their pet peccary with them as well. It was amazing. And it was so while it's hard work, it's work shared. Many hands make light work, and it's a social outing.
Yeah.
So like we go for a picnic, but they're collecting their food as well. And I think that's one of the things that this is good. It's really good family time to do this. And kids love to get involved in this sort of food. And very often will eat things that otherwise they wouldn't even try.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. I mean, I did a cookery book on camping, cooking outdoors. And a lot of it's like this. But there's also French chefs in there. And I've always hoped that there will be a youngster out there who will go to university and take that book and discover that not only can they eat well and very cheaply, but they can also have the most amazing social life because they can host incredible parties. So it's cooking very well over this far.
It is.
Our fire managers here have done a superb job with the fire. Yeah, well done them.
Do we have any other questions? I see a hand up here. Thanks, Al.
Hi, this is not from me. It's from these two small boys, and it's very specific.
They don't look like boys to me. They look like wild beasts.
Yes.
They want to know, have you ever eaten a polar bear?
Have I eaten polar bear? No, I haven't. And neither have I ever been eaten by a polar bear, which is perhaps more the point. No, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, exactly.
Polar bears are amazing creatures, but they are very dangerous. They would look at us as food. There's one animal that looks as a human and can see food. So you have to show them great respect.
Have you had close encounters with wild animals?
Yeah, I've had a lot of close encounters with wild animals. Yeah.
Any other questions out there? Yeah, over here. Amazing.
Yeah, well, thanks. Hi, Ray. Just if you were making that soup here today, would it be kind of a couple of onions, couple of carrots in with the fish bits and done on the coals, or how would you?
So, you could do that, and that will be fine. There's no right way or wrong way. You make the soup as you wish. You can put potato in if you want, but that's not how I would normally do it, because normally I would do this out in the bush. We wouldn't have all those ingredients with us, but we would have flour, and we would have a stock cube with us in our normal outfit. So, and hopefully some butter. And what we'd do is make a roux. So we'd cook the flour through in the butter. We'd add a stock to a stock cube to this. We might also add in some stinging nettles, some fat hen, any good wild pot herb will go in as well. And then we combine that with the roux and it's done. Now, if we were at home, then I would cut up onion and some carrot, and I would probably thicken it. Instead of a roux, I'd thicken it with creme fraiche, which is really nice. So you honor the ingredients with whatever you've got, but the most important thing is the care.
Amazing. Any other questions? Oh, okay, let's go. Do you have a question? No.
It's starting to look quite nice now.
We have more questions. Yeah, we'll go in the middle first, and then we have one up the front.
Hi, Ray. I can see the fire management team are working overtime there on the underside of your table. I was wondering, have you ever had an experience out in the wild where one of your cooking fires or campfires has gotten out of control?
Not one of mine. I was once filming in Australia, and we had driven a very, very long way into the bush and had to rendezvous with a helicopter that had to make several refuel stops to get to where we were. And in the morning, we were flying to a crashed Liberator bomber in the outback. And as we took off, I noticed that there was a piece of wrinkly tin near to where the pilot of the helicopter had had his bedroll. And as he took off, it turned over and his fire was still burning underneath it. We flew out a 35-minute flight and just managed to get the helicopter down amongst the trees. And two of us set to cutting a proper landing zone. And we had the cameraman with us. And the helicopter pilot went back to pick up the director and the sound recordist and a Daily Mail journalist. And then they never showed up. And we're thinking, oh my God, we're now ourselves caught in a 1943 survival situation at the same scene of a drama from then. But fortunately, I'd taken a sat phone with me in a small pack. And so I called to find out what was going on. As they'd taken off, that had fanned, the downdraft had fanned the fire. And the whole crew were fighting a bushfire.
Oh, wow.
So it was quite, it can happen very, very easily.
Yeah.
So no, you have to be very sensible when it comes to fire, when it's like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have some more questions. There's one up the front here. Right in the front.
This is your second question. Are you hoping you're going to get
No,
some
this
salmon?
is number one. I must look like someone else. I've been a fan for a long time, Ray, and it's great to see this in real life, But I guess the question I have is, I watch your Blu-rays and your DVDs, and I've watched you travel the world. And I guess the question is, you visit places a lot of us probably never have a chance to see. Have you visited these places more recently, revisited them? And if you have so, have you seen any impact on, let's say, climate change or how has it changed for you?
It's a really good question. And quite a few of the communities I have been back to, in Africa, in Australia, and a couple of other places. And I've noticed a few things. Firstly, some of the elders that I work with have gone now, which is a great shame. In many of the places, those films can no longer be made because the knowledge has diminished tremendously. Wow. The last time I was working with Kalahari Bushmen, I had two young Bushmen with me, and I told them their story of fire, where fire came from. They couldn't remember it. And as I told them, it was translated into Afrikaans for them. And they go, oh yeah, I remember hearing that. So it's amazing the loss of knowledge is terrific, the speed of loss.
here. I mean, I think probably only last 10, 15 years maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the landscape must change completely as well. And
well,
like as in, you know, from climate change and things. Have
Yeah.
you noticed those kind of changes as well?
Climate change we've known about climate change by looking at things in the bush for the last 30 years. No one's been listening till now. But it's not that we hadn't been saying. The only place where you see really dramatic change is in rainforest.
Yeah.
Because you go back and it's just not there. That and in the Alps. In the Alps, the ice I learned to climb on has gone. It's melted. But in the rainforest, it's staggering how just a couple of men with Kalashnikovs to defend themselves and a chainsaw can eradicate rainforest and turn it into coffee plantation. It's staggering the speed at which that happens. And this is happening in remote places, so we don't get to see. But we live in a most extraordinary time. And if you want my honest opinion, what we are facing at the moment in the world and the problems in the world is a challenge to democracy itself. And I do not believe that we can solve the world's problems until we all can talk and work together. And that, to my mind, will only work in democracy. So there's an opportunity here for nations like China who want to be a part of that, to actually change the way they think and to join the rest of us and to become more democratic.
I think we had one more question over here. Ella's come to get it. Yeah, just here on the side.
How's it going, Ray? Just throughout your whole career,
Make sure and hold the microphone right.
Do you have a favourite memory throughout your whole career?
Do I have a favourite memory?
Throughout your whole career.
Your favourite.
Or something that sticks out, I guess.
Yeah, I think the first time I worked with Aboriginal people, and in those days we had a month to make a half-hour documentary instead of 2 days. And I'd gone ahead with the director by a week to get to know the people. And the morning that we left, they were in tears at our leaving. I think that was the most special.
Yeah.
So I had a really good crew. And I'd said to the production team, we have to choose the crew well, because when we go to film, we're collecting information, but we're leaving something behind. So the crew have to be the right people, and they were.
Yeah.
I might just hold this over the fire because it's pretty good. That's looking.
So you had flipped that.
That's
over.
what it looks like. It's done.
Beautiful. Amazing.
Have we got a serving board? There is one, I think.
Yeah, we'll get a serving board.
Yeah.
Will I move this one out of the way? Yeah.
I hope it's done.
Looks beautiful. Do you have a favorite type of fish? Is that like picking your favorite child?
I very much like this family of fish.
Yeah.
The char is amazing. It's got the beef of salmon and the delicacy of trout. I think it's very special.
So we're just cutting the willow off to release it.
You can reuse the sticks. Where did I put the knife there? That's it. Like a magician. There we go.
Beautiful.
Would you like to try some?
Yes, please. Let's take a piece. It's beautiful. Beautiful fish.
Moist?
Yeah, very. The flavor is beautiful. And
a beautiful Irish fish.
Beautiful Irish fish, yeah.
The lovely fish.
And it is beautiful that it has kept that moisture.
Yep.
Sometimes you think about fish over fire, you think it might dry it out.
Yeah, it doesn't dry out. It just goes crisp on the surface. I like it like that.
Yeah.
You might like it, put a little bit of salt and some black pepper on it. Each to their own.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very special.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Massive round of applause, please, for Ray Mears.